Hey everyone, Pants here from the Skeptaholics podcast. Before we get started today, I just want to run through our socials here really quick to let you know where you can find us to keep up with the content. You can find us on Facebook at the Skeptaholics podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Skeptaholics, and you can find us on TikTok at Skeptaholics podcast. Find and download the podcast on Google Podcasts, Apple Music, Spotify, Podbean, Amazon Music, Pandora, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and anywhere else you can find your favorite podcasts. You can even tell your Alexa-enabled device, "Hey Alexa, play the Skeptaholics podcast." Guys, liking and following on all of our social media accounts is the best way to help us out. So give us a like, give us a follow, and share with your friends. Thanks for tuning in, and enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Skeptaholics podcast, your source for all things conspiracy, true crime, unexplained, and unsolved. All we ask is that you keep an open mind and always question everything.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Skeptaholics podcast. I'm Paul here with Jake. How's it going this week?
Good. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing good. And Pants, what's a good word this week, Bubba?
Feeling pretty good, ready to get replaced with a lookalike.
Yee! So, for those of you who don't know, I think we ended last week's episode without mentioning anything. Jamie edited it. I haven't listened to it yet, so he could probably tell us. But this week we're doing celebrity deaths and their replacements. The episode title is actually Celebrity Doppelgangers. So we're not just going to cover celebrities who died who were replaced with a lookalike or anything else that we might get into in the episode, but we're also going to cover celebrities like a good example that we've been talking about is Keanu Reeves, who is allegedly either a vampire or has been cloned numerous times throughout the years. So we're going to be touching on quite a bit of stuff in this episode. The big one for me and the one that really gets me cranked is Paul McCartney, and I went fucking deep on Paul McCartney. So, really, without further ado, I guess we'll just start it off with some banter about some of, what the lore behind this is and, some of the things that you guys have found and stuff like that. And I guess I'd kind of like to wrap it up with Paul McCartney if I could and let us talk about the rest. Or if you guys want, I could lead off with it. Up to you.
In my infinite wisdom, which isn't so infinite, it's pretty finite. I meant to put celebrity imposters, but I put doppelgangers instead. So we can go with that, or I can change it.
It happens. I'm fine with that because, like I said, there's so much different shit we're going to talk about in this episode surrounding, I guess, celebrity conspiracies in general, that it's I think a pretty good cover.
I found online a number of just normal people that were going through like art museums and are standing there going, "What?" Because they look just like the person in the painting. I'm guessing with 7
Could you imagine if you're rolling through
planet.
a museum with Paul and all of a sudden you see a painting that looks like him? Good God. It brought me Ripley's Believe It or Not museum.
Well, like that. I mean, that kind of relates to our topic here because, we've got family photos that go back, 3 generations, 4 generations, almost 5 generations. And, looking at some of my grandpa's brothers and then looking at my cousins and stuff, very, very similar. So, like these doppelgangers we're talking about or whatever, it wouldn't surprise me if some of these people were actually related to who's ever like in the painting from 400 years ago. I don't think
Yeah.
it's really that far fetched. And then you end
No,
up
I
with
don't either. And
family traits in the DNA, and if somebody's going to look like somebody eventually.
I mean, my wife and my daughter look fucking identical when you hold my wife's baby picture up next to my daughter. And my oldest, I have a picture of my dad's dad, my grandfather, actually sitting right where I'm sitting now. The Christmas tree was right in the corner where my computer is. And he's sitting in front of the Christmas tree with a dog. And I can hold that picture up next to my oldest, and they look identical at that age. And my grandpa was 8 or 10 years old in a picture, maybe 11 pushing it, and my oldest is 8. So, I mean, there's definite resemblance. I mean, uncanny resemblance just in 3 generations. So, I'm over here just fucking grab bag of both sides of my family, little this, little that, and
Right.
but so I mean we've already kind of touched on like the Jack Black one and Keanu Reeves a little bit. What other celebrities do we have? I know the only one that I had ever really heard about this death conspiracy on up until we started making the list for the podcast and Jamie brought him up was Paul McCartney. But I mean, when we were making the list, Jamie brought up an Avril Lavigne conspiracy, an Eminem conspiracy.
Miley
What
Cyrus
other
is a big one
ones?
too.
Is it?
Yeah, because there's actually a video on YouTube, you can find it, where, and I don't even know. I think if you just type in Miley uses a body double, there's actually at a concert where for like 30 seconds, I don't know why she does it, but you watch her switch places with this body double, and like if you hadn't
Is that the one
seen
where
them switch,
she's? Is that the one where she's dressed in pink, and
yeah,
it's like what is it? It's almost like a high school musical concert or something like
I don't
that.
know, something like that.
And she ducks underneath. 2 guys hurry up and hoard her in underneath the curtain, and then the other one pops out.
Yeah. So I mean, if there's somebody out there that looks exactly like her and she's used her, I mean, I don't think it's far fetched. Supposedly, the theory is that she died of an overdose in 2010, which also isn't far fetched. Let's be honest.
No. Well, and I mean,
And possibly could explain the whole falling off the deep end. But that's where Britney Spears comes in too. Like Britney Spears is a big one too, and it's kind of based on the fact that when she just lost her mind,
yeah.
Yep.
Pretty much any celebrity that's had like a complete mental breakdown where their whole life has flipped 180, there's like some kind of theory out there that it's not really them.
Well, and I mean, even look at like back to the Hillary Trump presidential race. I remember with Hillary having all of her issues, her quote unquote medical issues, there was a lot of lore that it was either clones or body doubles or anything like that because she was very off the wall. She was doing very erratic things. Just acting really suspect.
She would straight glitch out.
Yeah.
Totally just talk, crickets just spaced right out.
That one leaned more towards like MK Ultra mind control, and because you always saw somebody swoop in, whether it was the CIA bodyguards or what, you always saw somebody swoop in to try to take care of her. And there was a video where outside of one of her town halls or something, she was being carried into the van, and you can see both of her feet, they're holding her upright, and instead of her feet being flat on the ground like this, her feet are kind of dragging on the top side of the toes as they're getting her into the van. And she ended up like an hour and a half later popping back up and being fine. But I think a lot of that came back to MK Ultra, but there was a sprinkle of clone or doppelganger look-alike in there in those conspiracies as well. I mean, we've even got one with Joe Biden right now. There's a slew of people noticing weird shit about him on the internet right now.
Right.
I think we talked about it after one of the episodes where his right earlobe never used to be connected. Now all of a sudden it's connected. The eyes are different. And a lot of
Yep.
people are saying it, either it's cloning or I don't want to say like time travel, but there's like different things that people are trying to kind of explain it away with.
Right.
But there's definitely and not it's noticeable, but there's notable difference. That earlobe connection thing gets me because I mean, I don't care how old you get and what in the hell changes in your life. Your earlobe isn't suddenly just going to grow and connect to the side of your face like that.
Right. That doesn't happen. But, like some of these people, the powers that be, like Hillary Clinton, like her or not, she has huge political influence. Her build, their whole family does.
Mm-hmm.
To lose, to lose that kind of political influence that has been like built for generations or whatever, to somebody that's going to be a really big loss. Britney Spears, how many hundreds of millions of dollars is she worth? Like, from the point, like at the high point of her career, even till now, I mean, she pretty much does nothing, and I'm sure she's making millions of dollars a year.
Interestingly
Yeah,
enough,
sure, yeah.
about Britney, she actually doesn't control any of her life. She doesn't control when she goes on tour. She doesn't control her money. She lives off of an allowance. She isn't allowed to spend anything without authorization, all because of this quote unquote mental breakdown that she had.
She's not allowed to do
The
interviews
courts, yeah, she's
without her
literally
father's consent.
yep. Her dad has
Really?
full yep, her dad is the
Hmm.
guardian ad litem
It's
for her,
nuts.
and
Huh.
he controls. So she's only allowed to spend, I think it's like 7 or 10% of her annual income without getting permission from him and the court first. It all has to go through that shit.
Hmm.
Right down to, I guess, seeing her kids and shit like that. Any decisions with her kids.
Everything. It's down to the point where it sounds like she can't wipe her ass without his permission. Honestly.
Yeah, and
Really?
if
Is
it,
this a control thing or from her breakdown
it's
out the deep end?
supposedly from her breakdown, but I think her dad is just really greedy. Because when
Yeah.
I started looking more into it, her dad is really kind of a piece of shit.
Hmm.
And I mean, right down to where he booked that last Vegas stint that she did.
Yeah.
He booked that and basically didn't give a shit how she felt or anything like that, where she was mentally. He forced her to go out there and do that to make the money, not giving a shit where she was at mentally or worrying about setting up, arrangements so that she could see counselors and get psychiatric help, get her medications, stuff like that. He just
Right.
basically threw her to the wolves and said, "Go make million." I mean, the deal for like a 30-day or a 90-day stint. I don't remember what it was in Vegas, or a 1 year show agreement in Vegas, whatever it was. But the deal was for like $10 million. And it
Right.
was just like, all right, here,
Yeah,
go.
I want
And
to
now he's out living his best life, spending her fucking money because he's got control over it, and she doesn't even get to go grocery shopping without him. If she goes grocery
I wonder
shopping
if
and
this
she
was
wants to buy a new brand of coffee, she can't do it. If she wants to get a fucking dozen donuts and that's not typically something she gets, she can't do it without him saying, yeah, that's okay.
I wonder if this was a contract thing from like when she was a minor and they just carried it through her whole career. Like, it just put in the contract that this is indefinitely the deal. I could see him being kind of, protective over his daughter when, she was a minor, but then not be able to get out of the contract when she's adult. That would suck.
No, because he actually, after she had the breakdown and shaved her head,
Yeah.
it wasn't anything like that. Because when she had that breakdown, shaved her head, went fucking just off the goddamn rails for like a year or two straight.
That's when he
Yeah.
took over. Was after
That's
that.
when he
okay.
approached the courts and said, "All right, I need guardian ad litem powers over my daughter. She obviously cannot control her life. She obviously can't make decisions. I need you to grant me this power."
Which is part of the conspiracy theory about an imposter being that either A, he had his daughter killed or hidden or given a lobotomy or whatever, replaced her with this body double, and then took over.
Well, and the thing about that is it's actually honestly sad, because if you go on her Instagram or anything like that and watch videos she releases regularly, she's still, if it is a doppelganger, a clone, a body double, whatever, still batshit fucking crazy. I mean, you can tell just by watching the videos. It's almost like she reverted back to childhood when she lost her shit. She's
Wow.
got that very simple, very naive minded mentality
Yeah.
kind of thing going on. It's
The other part of the theory too is that maybe that she wasn't replaced with someone that's like acting, but that she was replaced with a clone, because so many times clones of things don't quite work properly. And so that's kind of part of the theory also, that they cloned her, replaced her with her clone, and her clone's fucking nuts because it's a clone. It didn't all clone correctly. And it worked out in his favor because now
quite work.
He's mega rich for doing nothing.
Yeah.
That's the theory anyway.
Interesting. Well, the problem with a lot of these theories is a lot of them fit, some of these stories are just too crazy for it not to be something just wild.
One of the craziest ones I found was that Taylor Swift is a clone, and which is like, all right, but supposedly she's a clone of Anton LaVey's daughter, Xena.
Really?
They do look uncannily alike. If you look them up side by side, they really do. But then the other part of it is that Xena left the Church of Satan in 1990 to go be a tantric Buddhist or something like that. And then like a year later, Taylor Swift was born. So it's like, that's kind of part of their reasoning as to like, that was wild. That's like,
I was going to say,
but I mean, they do look uncannily alike.
Right. I was going to say Anton LaVey's daughter had to be older than Taylor Swift, I would think.
Yeah, that's why they think
But,
they made like maybe a clone isn't the right word, but like cloned her DNA and then like made a baby. If that makes sense?
Ah, yeah. Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying?
That's interesting.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how any of this shit works, to be honest. But yeah, then like so Taylor Swift is Taylor Swift, but it just so happens that she's like DNA the same as Xena is kind of what they're saying.
Right. Which would definitely be interesting.
I don't delve too much into cloning people in my garage, so I don't really know. But...
So, feed me some info about this Avril Lavigne and the Eminem one. Hook me up with some goods on that.
Well, so with Avril Lavigne, the big thing is like that, she kind of made her one hit or whatever, or two hits, because I think she made a song with Lil Mama that was pretty popular also. But then she just like dropped off the face of the earth. Like it's one thing to be kind of a one hit wonder, but then you still kind of like hear about these people in the years after. You know, like Vanilla Ice, after he went to prison or whatever, and then got out, and now he does like a TV show on HGTV or something. You know, but Avril Lavigne just kind of disappeared. Like, just, you know, she does tours, but the theory is that they replaced her with her best friend, Melissa Vandella, but also that Melissa Vandella might be a fictional character. I don't know. It gets kind of out of control.
So
But
I don't know when she fell off the radar, but looking up her wiki, she was in a says marriage from 2006 to 2010 with Derek Whibley. I don't know who he is.
no idea.
Busy D. He's a Canadian musician. It's the frontman for. He's the frontman for Sum 41. Yeah. Yep.
Well,
So she was in a marriage with him from 06 to 2010, and then she was with Chad Kroeger from 2013 to 2015, the lead singer of Nickelback, which fuck Nickelback as much as I like their music. So I don't know if any of that has like an explanation for it.
maybe that's part of the
Or
theory
kinda-
too, is that some of the songs that she did make after those couple of hits were like the lyrics got super dark, and they kept kind of roundabout referencing to the fact that Avril may be dead. I don't know. That's just one of the ones that I had always heard about for like quite a few years. And then the big thing with Eminem was that he had that 4 years between, I think it was Encore and Relapse. Yeah, Encore came out in 04 and Relapse came out in 09, and he came out and said he had writer's block for 4 years. And so because of how prolific he was before that, I guess a lot of people kind of thought like, yeah, right. And so then they assume he died in there somewhere and was replaced. Because then once Relapse came out, I mean, pretty much Relapse was kind of similar, but then every album after that was like a complete 180 from everything we knew about how Eminem made music. And so
yeah.
could just be, you know, people change, but could just be that it's not him either.
Well, and that's what I've found too, with especially in like the music industry where things are a little bit more notable as far as hiatuses go. You know, I mean, you can have somebody like Owen Wilson. What was his last good movie?
You, Me, and Dupree.
Wedding Crashers.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, not. I shouldn't say not last good movie, but his last movie was Wedding Crashers. I think, at least as far as I know.
I'm sure he's been in something since then.
Oh, I'm gonna look up and find out. But so yeah, I mean, Wedding Crashers was 05. Starsky and Hutch was 04, 01. So I mean, even with like,
yeah, but he plays Lightning McQueen also. So Cars 3 came out like 3 years ago.
Yeah. And he does a lot with Legos and stuff, but I mean, still, you can. What I'm trying to get at is you can see a hiatus from actors of a couple of years and not think that anything's wrong. I mean, look at the Jay and Silent Bob series, Dogma, Clerks, Clerks 2, stuff like that. How long were those guys taken off in between movies before releasing another one? You know, it doesn't really get caught that much on that. But on the music side, one thing I'm noticing is there's like a 3 or 4 year hiatus in these cover-ups, and we'll see that again at least with the Paul McCartney one, which I still to this day it's my, and I've said this already this episode like 3 times. I'm going to say it again. It's my absolute favorite. I am so fucking rock hard over covering this that it's unbelievable.
And it's interesting. You start looking at celebrity lookalikes and stuff like that. It's, you have a lot of actors today that actually look like actors from the 30s and 1940s, 1950s. You look at a picture of like Clark Gable and George Clooney. Very, very similar. There's it's really weird how many there actually are. It's almost to the point where it doesn't matter. Pick a celebrity. I bet they have some type of lookalike, doppelganger, whatever. Almost all of them. There's I think she was a singer from the 1950s. Zora Neale Hurston looks identical to Queen Latifah. Now, Zora was from the 1950s. She was popular. Identical to Queen Latifah. Just, how does this happen? Lucille Ball, popular back in the 50s.
Holy shit, you're not kidding.
Yeah. Lucille Ball and Deborah Messing, almost identical. Here's another one. Look up Marilyn Monroe and Gwen Stefani. It's how I've seen like 70 of them myself. How do you have not only these celebrities that look like others? What are the odds? What are the odds of like celebrities today look like the same celebrities from the 50s? Or did they figure out that if they keep like these DNA lines going, these are the people that are popular? Do we just recreate them, or are they some type of immortal? Are they something? We just take them off the scene for a little bit and then bring them back, give them a new haircut, and there's somebody else.
In some instances, that might be the case, but I find that hard to believe. Like, especially with the Lucille Ball thing, she lived to be quite old, so that one would almost have to be a case of cloning, if that were the case, to get Deborah Messing from her.
And a lot of these people are still alive. Some of them are extremely old, but still alive.
Yeah, I mean, Will Smith has an almost identical look-alike. There's quite a few different ones that, I mean, you can just go and Google it. I don't know if it works. I had heard a story, and I thought the guys' names were Will Smith, but they had been arrested. One was released from jail while the other one was still in jail. They were housed in the same facility from the same town. I thought their names were Will Smith, but this happened in like the 1800s. But they were African American gentlemen. Same name, looked almost identical, but there were 2 different inmate numbers for each of them. And the COs thought they were fucking around with them. That it was one guy just completely messing with them, and it turns out they were on separate wings of the facility, whatever, didn't know each other existed. And finally, when one's release date came and he got let out, the other one was still there, and they were like, whoa, wait, holy fuck. Okay. That's kind of strange.
I heard that story. Here, you want another one that's going to blow your mind a little bit? Take a good look at Elvis Presley and Justin Bieber.
Don't do that to me. Please
Just saying,
don't.
not to ruin your night.
Not those two. Don't. No.
I'm just saying. Just saying. That's
Don't. Don't.
it's it's kind of hard to deny. I mean, yeah.
Don't.
I'll ruin it for everybody.
I'm not even looking at it. I am.
I refuse to believe Elvis is now a Canadian.
I don't
That's
know.
the part for me that
enough drugs, anything's possible, I guess.
So I mean, I looked it up just now under celebrity doppelgangers, and I've got the article is called 17 celebrity doppelgangers that will seriously blow your mind, and this is from InStyle magazine or whatever that news website,
Yikes.
whatever the fuck they are now.
You got that bookmark, don't lie.
No, not at all. So one of them is Liam Hemsworth. It says if he ever feels like moonlighting as a pro tennis player, Karen Kachanov is his answer. The Russian athlete could be the fourth Hemsworth brother, and he knows it. And they look a lot alike.
This dude's name is Karen?
Yeah. Karen Khachanov. Kachanov.
It's probably like Karen or something like that.
They probably it's fucking
Karen.
Russian, so who knows?
It's vodka.
So Marley Leslie, Lessley, and Reese Witherspoon, Amethyst Rose, and Lady Gaga. British student Laura Cadman and Taylor Swift. Sofia Solares and Selena Gomez. J-Lo's got one, Adele's got one, Emma Watson, Ariana Grande, John Legend has a baby that looks just like him. It's his baby, but I mean they're fucking mirrored images. Angelina Jolie, Gigi Hadid, Beyonce. There's a shit ton out there, just as far as doppelgangers go.
Crazy one too, and it's not necessarily a doppelganger situation, but there's a theory out there that Katy Perry is actually John Benet Ramsey.
I've heard that
John Benet Ramsey wasn't actually. Yeah, there's a theory that she wasn't actually murdered, and that she was kidnapped or sold. Sold off, and so it's not that she was like. Not doesn't really fit because it's not really like to shoot Katy Perry was like killed and replaced, but that she actually is John Benet Ramsey. I mean, it's hard to tell for me from like looking at Katy Perry now to looking at a picture of John Benet Ramsey at 6, but
yeah, she was
it's
really
not
young.
Too much of a stretch.
Died, right?
Looking at the pictures anyway. Yeah, I think she was 6. Maybe not even that old.
So,
I don't know.
That brings up another really strange one for me because there's like 4 people involved. I don't remember who the other 2 are, but Katy Perry and Zooey Deschanel look like they're fucking identical.
Yeah, I feel like they could be like sisters.
Well, and that's kind of what the running thing was for a while because Katy Perry, Zooey Deschanel, and then there were these 2 other women that were found that look almost identical to them. And it was kind of a running thing on the internet for a while. About 5 or 6 years ago, I remember, okay, did somebody's father have an affair and these are just sisters, or what's the story here? But I mean, Zooey Deschanel and Katy Perry looking as similar as they do absolutely fucks with me.
Yeah. You know, one thing that makes me consider like this conspiracy theory is like Bruce Willis. not only does he look like the spitting image of, General Douglas MacArthur, but you ever notice how he doesn't age? I remember, watching Die
I
Hard
feel
when
like
it
he's
first
looked the
came out.
same for like 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Die Hard
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 5, 7, die in a wheelchair. he's
Yeah.
had so many movies where he looks the same. It's kind of wild.
Yeah.
Like,
Morgan
just
Freeman's
doesn't
that
age.
way for me. I feel like he's been 90 years old since I was like 5.
I don't remember seeing anything with a young Morgan Freeman. The only difference between Green Mile Morgan Freeman and Morgan Freeman today, or not Green Mile, what was that movie he was in with Andy Dufresne? The
Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah. There is not a difference for me between Shawshank Redemption, Morgan Freeman, and Morgan Freeman today, other than the fact that he stopped dyeing his hair. Otherwise, you look at him, he looks exactly identical.
Yep.
Christopher Walken also is that way for me too. I feel like he's been.
You do not start with my Christopher Walken. I will kick your ass when it comes to Christopher Walken. You leave.
Okay.
There are two things that are off limits in this conversation: Elvis and Christopher Walken. From this point forward.
But here, what I'm saying is that Christopher Walken could be immortal, so I'm maybe bringing you good news.
I hope so, because Christopher Walken is my fucking spirit animal.
I hope so too. I mean, I love Christopher Walken. I'm just thinking of people like when I saw him in fucking Click when I was 8 till now, he's the same. He hasn't changed. And how do you not age in 20 years?
Do you even remember the music video he was in? I know Jake's got to remember this. I don't remember.
Which video was it?
It was.
What was he in? I think I remember.
Every time you type, it makes so much fucking work for me.
It was Fatboy Slim's Weapon of Choice.
Every time you start typing, I just cringe.
You can get with this, or you can get with that. You can get with this. He hasn't aged.
No. I remember him when he was doing
Other than the
skits
gray
on Saturday
hair.
Night Live. I mean,
it needs more cowbell.
Yeah, exactly. And that was when was that episode? 1998.
Oh, I mean, that
early
had
2000s.
Easily
I guarantee
25 years ago.
I bet you it was before I was born.
And watch, you pull that up, he's going to look exactly the same today as he did back then. I don't know what it is. He just that guy does not age.
So April 8th, 2000 is when that episode aired.
Oh, I was close.
Oh, wow. I thought it would have been longer ago than that. But, I mean, that's still 21 years ago. You should age in 21 years.
Kind of.
I mean, he's getting grayer. He's getting grayer, but
I'll have to say that's the same thing with Bruce Willis. If it wasn't for the gray hair, you wouldn't know it. The little bit of hair that he has. Yeah.
But, I mean, I can remember Bruce Willis being full-on gray with a little bit that he had when he first married, what's-her-nuts there that ended up with Ashton Kutcher.
Demi
Moore?
Yeah.
That's
it.
What's her nuts?
Fucking G.I. Jane.
But I almost wonder if it's not an old person thing, too, because, like, now that we're talking about this, I'm thinking even, like, Betty White and Dolly Parton, I don't ever remember them looking any different either.
Fuck, so Betty White has looked the same since Golden Girls.
You know?
See, with Dolly Parton, you can tell her age by how much plastic surgery she's had. She's tried to stay young for a long, long time. It was like her and Kenny Rogers. It was a race to see who could have the most plastic surgery done.
See who could save the oceans first.
Yes.
Right?
There's some... I'm just going to start calling Hollywood Holly weird. Because there's weird shit all across the spectrum. It's like you brought up before. witches' wands were strongest when they were made out of what? Wood from the holly tree, Hollywood.
Yes.
It's all a magic. It's all a magic show. It's
the magic of Hollywood.
I mean, they don't even hide that because they use that as a marketing ploy.
Right.
That exact phrase, the magic of Hollywood. Studio magic, this, that, and the other thing. I don't know.
What
But-
better place throughout history to hide than in plain sight, right?
And I mean,
Exactly.
that's kind of been the running
And-
theme over the last couple episodes is that everything that's done is done in plain sight. Jake's said it before. I think on past episodes and in private conversations with me, if there is something of a New World Order working off of the magic, they have to tell us what they're doing before they do it. And I'm going to butcher this, so I'm going to let you go with it, Jake.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you want me to expound on that?
Yes.
All right. So there's magic has rules. When you're talking about energy and vibration and the rules of magic, the rules of the earth, how things work, energy. When they're casting a spell, when they're doing it, whatever it is that they do, they have to tell us what they're doing. It doesn't matter how they tell us or when they tell us. They just got to tell us. It's in the rules. You know,
And it doesn't have to be blatant. They don't have to come out and say, hey, we are doing this.
okay. You know, for the listeners, example, how many times did The Simpsons predict the future? It gets out to enough people, they can say, see, we told you, it's right here. All you had to do is look for it. You know, they put it out there. It's public knowledge. It's out there. But if you're sitting there going, oh, look, I see it. See this? This means something. People just look at you like you're nuts. Nobody believes you. You know, it was
Until
what,
20 years later and Trump is elected president.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and coming down the escalator, just like, or steps or whatever it was, just like in the episode of The Simpsons. I mean, everything
Wearing
was
the
the
same colors.
Same colors.
They,
like
they even had a photo of him with like other royal, and I'm gonna quote unquote royalty. I think it was a Saudi prince or something.
Oh, was it them in the crystal ball kind of thing?
Yes, that one.
Yeah.
That one. It actually happened.
Yep, that one happened too. Are they?
It actually happened. It was him and like two other world leaders holding the crystal ball, and there ended up being a photo of the three of them, almost fucking identical.
Yep. Yeah, I was like, wasn't it like Netanyahu and then like some Saudi prince or something king?
I just found it. So Trump's standing there with a Saudi king, and I don't know who this other guy is. I'm gonna send a picture to the group chat, but it's got the Simpsons part of it and the real world part of it, and they're standing around an illuminated globe, and they're all touching it. Yep. And I mean, one could argue that this was done just for sheer and simple laugh of it because of the Simpsons episode. But even the look on the Saudi's face is almost identical.
You know, and that's the thing. It's they have to tell us, but it doesn't matter when or where or whatever. Nobody's going to believe you anyway. Just like if, you know, say some of these celebrities are 200, 300, 400 years old, they're somehow immortal. Who's going to believe it? It's all conspiracy theory. It's all, you know, whatever, BS. So if it's all over the internet that, you know, Jack Black, you know, was Paul Revere, actually, who's going to believe it? Nobody. And it makes me wonder because, all right, they have to at least take a time out someplace. Are a lot of these celebrities dead? Or are they're on an island someplace? They're going to be dead for about 30 years till everybody forgets about them. And then they're going to bring them back as somebody else. Just change their name. Like say Robin Williams. I'm not saying he's not dead or whatever. He's supposedly hung himself, and I'm not trying to be condescending to the dead. But what if he's like, you know what? I'm done. I think I'm out. I want to get out of the scene. I need to go relax for the next, 40, 50 years. And then they'll bring him back as somebody else. How think about it. If you were immortal, okay, all your family has died, all your friends have died. It's just a constant, relentless cycle of pain, heartache, because you're not going to want to get close to anybody because everybody else is mortal. They're just going to die. How far-fetched would it be for them to like, all right, I'm going to hang myself in the closet and bye. See you guys in 50 years. Then just go hang out on some celebrity island someplace. Hopefully it's not Epstein Island, but on some island.
It's so fucking weird how much you and I think alike, because I was just going to say, could it be Epstein Island? I mean, when I was going to bring up the Simpsons thing when you did. This episode is fucking creeping me out on more level than one. Fuck this shit.
Ooh,
I'm out.
And we're just getting started. Sweet. I'm all about creepy and weird. I was working in my basement last night. I'm sitting next to the table. I'm working on a project, and
what a way to start a story.
Sitting in my basement. Anyways,
I'm all about the creepy and weird. I was sitting in my basement.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there working on a project, and I got a paint mixer attachment for a drill sitting there on the table, and all of a sudden it just starts rocking back and forth. Like, I'm not touching the table. I'm sitting like in a lawn chair in my basement, and I just look over, and this thing's just like rocking back and forth. I'm like, well, that's kind of interesting. There's no wind, no breeze, no nothing, heater's not blowing on it, anything like that. And I didn't touch the table, and it's just moving on its own. I'm like, I got 3 kids and 2 pets. I don't need another mouth to feed. Go away. Yeah. I don't know. Then it was quiet the rest of the night. So
I feel like we've laid a really, really good basis down in this episode so far. I don't know if you guys have anything else to add. If you don't, I'm going to take off running with the Paul McCartney thing.
Keep it under an hour.
I'm kind of excited to get to this Paul McCartney one because this is actually one that I'm not familiar with. Not in depth, anyway.
Really? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, this one was like my introduction to even the possibility of a thought of anything like this happening. I remember the first episode I heard about it, no free ads, was Sam Tripoli's podcast, The Tinfoil Hat. He had done a podcast where he had another host of another podcast, a co-host of the podcast that I ended up finding and listening to after this, called Those Conspiracy Guys. And they did like a 6-hour long fucking episode on it. They basically, they sat down, all of their episodes are 6 hours long.
Wow.
Like, they're anywhere between 4 and 6 hours, and it's fucking crazy. They do a lot of bullshitting, a lot of off-topic shit, which we can do from time to time here, but they do, like, a lot. And Sam Tripoli does the same thing as well, and that's, obviously I listen to other conspiracy podcasts before we started this one. I still listen to other conspiracy podcasts especially around the topics that we're covering, just to get like another little insight into information outside of what I'm researching. See if I can find out anything different, a new theory to bring to you guys, anything like that. I'm sure whoever is listening to us isn't just listening to us; they're probably listening to a lot of the like podcasts as well. To and kind of do what I do: listen, see if you're going to get a lot of the same information, a lot of the same old shit across the board, but there might be that one just fucking heater in there that you didn't know about. But on Triple E's podcast, out of about an hour long episode, they only ended up covering like 15 minutes of this subject. And I wanted more, and I went looking right away. And the shit that I found on the internet about it, the shit that I found in other podcasts about it was unfucking real. So, I mean, I'm going to give you a good basis of all of the information that's out there. And of course, there's going to be a lot more that you can go and look as far as insight into what I give you. I'm a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about is just kind of brushing over things, but there's a few heaters in here, and some things I didn't even know about until I researched for this podcast, where I stopped and went, holy fuck, dude, that's huge. So we'll get to that.
Cool, let's get into it.
But anyway, starting out, it starts out that the conspiracy is that on November 9th, 1966, there was an argument at the Abbey Road studio. Paul had left in his car, which was a Volkswagen Beetle, a 60s Volkswagen Beetle. I'll cover more on that later on. But as he's leaving the studio, it's raining, and he sees this girl walking in the rain. So he stops, offers her a ride. She gets into the car, and once she kind of like wipes the rain off her eyes and shit like that, and starts talking to him and realizes who it is, they're already driving down the road. She freaked out, realizing that it was Paul McCartney, and the way the lore goes is once she realized that, she grabbed the wheel out of excitement to like pull herself over onto him, and they ended up losing control of the car, and Paul smacks a telephone pole. In some theories, over in England, the big brick banisters on joining the sections of wrought iron fencing together are a big thing. Some theories say it was that. Either which way, it causes a crash, and it leads us into this whole big thing. The theory is that the Beatles had an MI5 handler during their time of fame, and when this accident happened and they realized that Paul McCartney was dead, he stepped in and kind of took over and said, all right, Beatlemania is crazy. We are going to have worldwide suicides of teenage and 20, 30-year-old girls when they realize that Paul McCartney's dead. We are going to find a replacement. And you guys are going to go on like nothing ever happened. So who they say they ended up finding, and I'm going to pull this guy up because I've only found, but I'm going to pull this guy up. It's a gentleman by the name of Willie Campbell. And who Willie Campbell was American Bandstand during the height of the Beatles hype. Now I'm going to send this picture to the group chat. Willie Campbell, during the height of the Beatles hype, had won a Paul McCartney lookalike contest that American Bandstand had hosted. And he looks so much like Paul McCartney that legend has it, this MI5 operative hunted him down and said, all right, you're coming and you're going to be part of the Beatles now. You're taking over for Paul McCartney. This is what happened. This is what's going to go on. And in that picture that I sent the three of you, there's the picture of Willie Campbell. there's a picture of quote unquote new Paul McCartney, and then the center one is the two of those pictures kind of overlaid, and you can see that
Right.
it's almost an exact match. But one thing I want to point out to you in those pictures, those are all three allegedly Willie Campbell. Notice how deep the cleft in the chin goes. If you look up a picture of Paul McCartney pre-1966, he doesn't have that deep of a cleft chin, which I found very, very odd. So going further, we kind of laid the basis now. Legend has it, between 66 and 69, the Beatles didn't really play any concerts. Legend has it that this was because they were teaching Willie Campbell how to be Paul McCartney. Willie was a right-handed fellow. He had to learn how to play bass left-handed. He had to learn all the songs. He had to learn how to act, be, talk like, sing like Paul McCartney. So that 3-year hiatus where they didn't really do a whole lot was that era. I believe their last concert was at the end of 69 or sometime in 1970. It was the rooftop concert. If you go on YouTube and search Don't Let Me Down, you'll see a video of them at that rooftop concert. And that was allegedly their last public performance. But they really didn't do a whole lot in that time. They released some new albums, but that was about it. What's interesting about this conspiracy theory is if that's the case, then songs like Hey Jude and Blackbird, which were some of the greatest of the Beatles' time, were written by the imposter, or at least credited to the imposter of Paul McCartney. They weren't actually written by Paul McCartney if he did really die on November 9th, 1966. Breaking down into some of the tells that the Beatles released in their time throughout, we're looking at like Sgt. Pepper's, we're looking at, I believe, the White Album, over the course of a few different discographies. The song I Am the Walrus, the intro is supposed to be the sound of ambulances coming to the crash scene. Walrus is a reference to McCartney's teeth coming through his cheek and lips. The Stupid Bloody Tuesday that is said in the lyrics, the crash happened on a Monday night. So I believe, I'd have to look it up to be sure, but it was either a Monday or Tuesday night, so they're talking about the time frame. Okay, so November 9th was a Wednesday. So that was when Paul was supposedly actually dead. So Stupid Bloody Tuesday, I don't know if it happened in the late hours or what, but it, according to the conspiracy, the Stupid Bloody Tuesday is a reference to the crash happening around that day. Yellow matter custard dripping from a dead dog's eye is a reference to McCartney's eye being out of socket and the brain matter and spinal fluid seeping from it. We're going to get kind of graphic here and trying to explain all of this stuff, but I'm going to try to keep it as low key as possible. On the Abbey Road album cover is supposed to be nothing but a tell on McCartney's death. So the conspiracy behind the Abbey Road album cover is that John is leading up front dressed in all white, and he's portraying the Reverend leading the funeral procession. Ringo Starr follows John. He's dressed in all black as a pallbearer, and George is at the back in all denim. He's wearing a long sleeve denim button-up shirt with denim pants and a pair of generic work boots. And he is not in a suit, supposed to portray the gravedigger who is following Paul. John, Ringo, and George are all in step with their left foot leading on the album cover. Paul is third in line, and he is portraying the corpse. He's out of step with his right foot leading. He is barefoot, which in some religions is how they bury their corpses, which is what they're saying that signifies, as he's the only one on the album cover barefoot. And he's holding a cigarette in his right hand. Now, you remember back about 5 minutes ago, we talked about the real Paul McCartney being left-handed. When I smoked, I never smoked with my left hand. I cannot remember. It doesn't feel natural. If I were to try to pick up something and emanate having a cigarette in my hand, I always remember smoking with my right hand. Even when I was like driving or anything, I'd reach across to flick my ash out the window. I don't remember ever comfortably smoking with my left hand. So they're saying that's a huge tell that, hey, right hand dominance, cigarettes in the right hand, it's pointing towards the ground. Yeah.
I used to smoke with my left hand quite a bit if I was driving.
Okay. And see, I mean, that's where I'm rationalizing this. No,
Yeah.
not at all. So they're saying the cigarette being in the right hand,
I guess.
Definitely.
Because I'm not going to say I'm ambidextrous, but I kind of am. So, yeah, if you're a person that isn't, I can see it. Yeah.
And so what the conspiracy is saying is that the cigarette being in the right hand and pointing straight down towards the ground is, not only signifying death, and him being an imposter being that it's in the right hand, but it being pointed straight down to the ground instead of outward, paralleling or horizontal to his body. It's paralleling his body, showing that he's underground. The car behind the band to the left, if you look at the album cover, in the Abbey Road... Okay, let me restart that. The car behind the band to the left in the Abbey Road album cover is a VW Beetle, which is the model Paul was allegedly driving the night of the crash. The license plate on the car reads 28IF, allegedly saying that Paul would be 28 at the time of the Abbey Road album release if he was still alive. The VW also looks to be parked farther off the road than the other cars in the picture and possibly crashing into the brick pillar behind it. I Am the Walrus ends with a live BBC broadcast of a fatal scene from Shakespeare's King Lear, with Oswald groaning, "Oh, untimely death." Now, when I was looking into this, John Lennon actually said himself that he just liked how it fit with the song, and that's why he had it added into the video. I mean, kind of smells like a cover-up to me. But in Glass Onion, John sings, "Here's another clue for you all. The walrus is Paul," in reference to I Am the Walrus. There's another reference in the song I Am the Walrus I didn't write down here, but it's the Goo 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 is a reference to what I think it was Brimley who wrote Humpty Dumpty. I'd have to look it up again. But it's in reference to what Humpty Dumpty said after he fell off the wall, cracking his head open. Another little fun fact on that, walrus is actually the Scandinavian word for corpse. If you spin the number 9 intro from Revolution number 9 backwards, it's said that you can hear "Turn Me On, Dead Man" when it's played backwards. At the end of Strawberry Fields, John can be heard saying not once but twice, "I buried Paul." Now, Strawberry Fields for me is kind of with it coming after this so-called death, is kind of a dark song that you kind of feel like is hinting at something anyway, because it says, "Let me take you down because I'm going to Strawberry Fields. Nothing is real." That screams, hey, pay attention to this, especially with how many times it steps down an octave as you're listening to the song, or a half an octave. I don't know, off the top of my head how they're stepping it down, but it drops in tone and it kind of slows down a little bit. And you just really get like this heavy, morbid feeling whenever they say nothing is real. But anyway, at the end of the song, you get kind of like this Hindi, Bollywood vibe kind of music as they're walking away in a field when you're watching the video. And it's during that part that you can hear John say that. When one of the lawyers for the band was asked about this, he said that John was referencing the fact that his guitar was covering up Paul's sound. But if you listen to the song, it's mixed quite well. And I don't see why they would feel the need to add that at the end of the song. Some other evidence that is typically used in the conspiracy is a Hollywood Reporter interview from 2015 with Ringo Starr, where he does a tell-all on the death of Paul McCartney and the cover-up that ensued for the years after. There is also a documentary called The Last Testament of George Harrison. It was put out by Route 61 Productions. It portrays cassettes that allegedly contain George Harrison's voice and a tell-all deathbed confession of the truth behind the conspiracy. But both of these have been listed as hoaxes. The Hollywood Reporter is kind of a known satire literature, for lack of better terms. And if you look up the IMDb on The Last Testament of George Harrison, it's listed as a mockumentary. But in this documentary, I guess Route 61 Productions received a package that was postmarked out of London containing 2 cassettes. And they've tried to have the voice verified by numerous different I guess sources, for lack of better terms, whether it be recording studios matching the sound waves of George Harrison's voice in interviews and songs versus the voice on the cassette tape, or different laboratories scientifically trying to line those up, whatever. They've all come back inconclusive. So there's no proof that that is actually George Harrison's voice on those tapes. But like I said, what they're saying is they were sent these just days before George Harrison passed away, and he's supposedly laying in a hospital bed making this recording because he had his wife sneak out and go get him the tape recorder, and he wants to tell the world about the truth that happened, that Paul McCartney isn't real as we know him today. He really did die in 1966, so forth and so on.
Can I throw a little something in here about this Abbey Road album cover?
Yeah.
Something I'm seeing.
Is it about the skull?
No, I forgot about that. I heard that was on here someplace, but
yeah, I forgot to mention it too, so I'll mention that really quick before you jump into that, just so we don't lose it, because we have a tendency to bury thoughts like that. On the back cover of the album sleeve, where the picture of the stone wall with the Abbey Road sign on it, in the shadows there can be seen the image of, they call it a Reaper's skull, and the shadow itself makes up the Reaper's robe. But it starts at like the right hand corner of the Abbey Road sign and goes down at an angle across the back of the artwork on the stone wall.
I've heard of this album cover having all kinds of hidden things in it for a lot of years. You know, just what I wanted to point out, I guess, what I'm seeing is the black and white contrasts, like the white VW Beetle, and on the other side of the road there's a black car parked. So, it's not blue, it's not red, it's not whatever other color. You got a white on one side and a black on the other. And, you have the suits of the guys, one white, one black. Now, if you look into it in, an esoteric type mindset, I guess, white and black signify your journey through life. All the good and the bad, the dark, the light, the good, the evil, the yin, the yang, all of that. It signifies life and death.
Well, and what you
So
might what you might find interesting about that conversation is I just sent a picture to the group chat of the back of the Abbey Road album cover where the skull is, and you can see it right behind. It's kind of in the small of the woman's back, but looking at this, the Abbey Road sign on the stone wall is actually both white and black. It's a black background with white lettering on it as well.
those are things that stand out to me. And it's interesting because, they're walking left to right, and you have the white car on the left and the black car on the right. So you're
So they're
walking
almost
from the light into the darkness, but you're being led by, the priest or whatever. Just the crossing of the road, it's white stripes and the black top. The asphalt's black. You're going through this white black contrast through this entire thing.
it's almost like they're escorting them to death to top it all
escorting
off.
him to escorting him to the afterlife or
Yep.
whatever. There's just
Yeah,
too much
that's
stuff in this album cover that to be coincidence. I mean, come on, really? But on the other hand, people are going to say you're just looking way too far into it. You're seeing things that aren't there. Whatever.
But are we though? Because at the beginning of this episode, we talked about
They have to,
hiding things in plain
and them
sight.
having to tell us.
If you're used to looking for the quote unquote clues, are you really reading too far into it, or are you noticing the
Right.
clues?
So much of this stuff is done on purpose that it's kind of stupid almost to deny a lot of it. I was at a friend's house one day, and his little boy was watching some cartoons. It was a DVD of something or other. I didn't even recognize the cartoon. And I'm BSing with my friend, and I look over at the TV, and I'm like, "Holy crap! Did you see that? Rewind, back it up." Sure enough, like in the background, all like real subtle, there were like skulls and crossbones and stuff like that, and it wasn't. Okay, yeah, maybe that is. No, it was like cloud in the sky was a skull. Just weird, almost subliminal type stuff that's right there in front of our face that we don't see. Because, we don't train our brains, our minds to see these things. That's how they can hide them in plain sight. I mean, open Facebook. Scroll Facebook. How fast do you actually scroll Facebook? You're going to probably look at 200 to 300 things in the period of about 5 minutes. How much do you actually pick up on? Your subconscious picks up on it. How much do you consciously pick up on? It's crazy that, especially today, we're just this instant gratification type society that it's got to be, what's next? We get bored within seconds. Some of us do. But so you don't even see it. They could tell you what tomorrow's lottery numbers are. You won't even pick up on it. You'll never even see it.
Miss it.
You could be watching your favorite show, and they could be like, "Look, I won the lottery. Here's my numbers." Well, it's just on a show. How could those lottery numbers come up? And sure enough, the next day after that show airs, it's the same numbers. Do you think anybody put two and two together? No, more than likely not. Until somebody's sitting around watching videos and going, hey, wait a minute. They pick up on it. Then it's just a conspiracy. It's wild. Anyways, I'm going to shut up and let you keep going.
Okay. So, with all of the information that's been presented so far, two of the main sources for the conspiracy are at least brushed under the rug as a hoax. But George Harrison has had a knack for hinting at the conspiracy being true in various interviews, but he's done it with very cryptic messaging. I don't have any direct examples of this. It was something that I came across in my research, but there's been different, really off the wall answers that he's had in interviews that could be interpreted as, "Hey guys, you're looking over here where they want you to, but you need to look over here to see the truth," kind of thing. One of the other things that was pointed out is Paul was officially pronounced dead at the scene of the accident. New Paul on I think it was the inside of the sleeve of the Sgt. Pepper's album is wearing an OPP patch on the sleeve of his band uniform. There's examples of this patch everywhere, but it's said that the patch that Paul was wearing for the photo shoot was altered to say OPD, not OPP, signifying that real Paul was officially pronounced dead. Again, he's the only one wearing this patch, and in the photo, sitting to Paul's left, is George Harrison, who has his finger on his left cheek, which is where Paul's teeth were allegedly through his cheek, and the eye that was dislodged in the accident. And he's just sitting there pointing like this in the picture, not doing anything. He's got a very inquisitive, almost like, hey, look at me, pay attention to this look on his face, almost like he's toying with us. So there's evidence for that. Allegedly, Paul McCartney's children have not had a DNA match on paternity tests with the Paul McCartney that's alive today either. I wasn't able to find a whole lot on it other than that lore to clarify that, but it's another fuel item for the conspiracy fire. The other thing that I found interesting in my research is that before John Lennon's assassination in 1980, George Harrison claims that 3 weeks prior to John's death, he called George and said, "I can't take it anymore. I have to come out with the truth. We've been hiding Paul for so long. We need to tell everybody what really happened." We've talked about this in the past on other episodes. I know we have. I find it strange that all government operatives, John Wilkes Booth, Lee Harvey Oswald, referred to by 3 names. Whenever there is a prominent public figure suicide that turns out to have a conspiracy around it that is linked back to the government or a world government in some form or another, they use 3 names. John Lennon's killer was Mark David Chapman. Goes by the 3 names. If that call between John and George was recorded and they found out what John was going to do, could it have been MI5 that had John killed? You know, John had a long, long history of going outside of his apartment and greeting fans every day up until his death. Whenever he would go anywhere, he'd meet everybody, he'd talk with them. Is it just pure coincidence? Or
I think he was one of them that really had enough of the BS. He's seen that world for what it really is, and I think he
Yeah.
had enough. And all of a sudden, oops, he's killed.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it. So, right around the time of the Beatles splitting up, Paul was the first to leave. There was some rifts that were caused because Paul was newly married and he brought his brother-in-laws in, and I believe his father-in-law to kind of quote unquote manage the band's financials, and that caused a lot of unrest. John had met Yoko by then, and he was starting his solo career with the Plastic Ono band. Um, and Paul was starting to venture off on his own stuff. The last public appearance and the last discography that was released right around the time of the Beatles breakup was all done so with like more solo accreditations. John Lennon taking sole credit for songs, Paul McCartney taking sole credit for songs. Um, where up until then it was always Lennon, McCartney as credited authors. So there was a lot of really weird shit going on around this time to begin with, and then you start throwing the John Lennon assassination in there, and you start looking at some of the evidence behind that. And then a lot of people don't know that George Harrison was attacked in the middle of the night at his estate, his wife, his children. They were at their house sleeping. Somebody broke in through a window and stabbed George Harrison. Almost 3 weeks to the day prior to that, George had been talking about going public with what happened to Paul. Is it coincidence?
Interesting timing, if
I don't
nothing
know.
else.
And while we're here, I've got a page pulled up. I'm going to look and see if I can actually find the perpetrator's name.
Does he have 3 names?
So it says, oh, well, that's what I'm wondering. Michael Abram, a mentally ill man born in 66 in Huyton, Liverpool, had scaled a perimeter wall and walked up the drive to the mock Gothic mansion. Although security cameras were positioned by the main gates and the back entrance, the boundary fence and parts of the grounds was a state of such disrepair that it was easy for an intruder to gain access. So they don't refer to him with 3 names, but I find it odd that they point out that he was mentally ill.
Right.
Make it a point to point that out. That happened in 99. And then we have this pair of tapes that was sent to a production company that I've never heard of before, Route 61 Productions. Out of everywhere George Harrison could send those tapes, why Route 61 Productions? There's a lot of odd that I can see where the conspiracy is fueled. For me, this one is completely plausible. I am not going to hide anything here. I believe 150% that the real Paul McCartney died. When you go out there and you look at side-by-side photos from like the difference in him between 66 and 69, I pointed out earlier in the episode when I was talking about Willie Campbell, the deeper cleft chin. It's like we were talking about with Biden in the connected earlobe.
Yep.
It's a difference that you really can't deny. And when you start looking into this, I've never come out and full-fledged said I 100% believe anything we've covered on this episode. This is a first for me. To me, there's no denying that something's being covered up. I almost wish that I could find more on the DNA results of the paternity tests. I had seen a YouTube video while doing this of the greatest Beatles songs written by Paul McCartney. And there was like a list of 20 or 25, and out of the 25, only like 2 or 3 of them came post 1966. Everything else was pre 66, pre quote unquote accident.
So
all of their hits that he was accredited for writing.
So this was all just kind of a backlog of Paul's music that they just finally pressed onto an album and just kept releasing.
No. So allegedly, Willie Campbell, from what everybody says, with him writing Blackbird and Hey Jude, which are probably two of the most iconic Beatles songs out there, did everybody that I looked at, every article, every YouTube video, everything said that Willie Campbell probably should have had Paul McCartney's job since the beginning.
Oh, okay.
Because he wrote those pieces that he did write and was credited writing after 66 were some of the best pieces of art that the Beatles released. A lot of his solo career stuff tops a lot of what the quote unquote original Paul wrote for the Beatles. So the argument is that whoever the stand-in is, Willie Campbell, a clone, whatever, was a far better lyricist and composer than the original. It's just that there weren't as many of these good pieces of work. There were even some people who argued that Blackbird and Hey Jude may have been written by John Lennon himself and accredited to Paul to help cover up the conspiracy because there were so few songs credited to his writings post quote unquote car accident. So I mean there's a million different directions you can go with it. It's a far out there one, albeit out of all the things we covered so far and probably all the things we'll cover in the future, probably the most believable for me. Almost undeniable when you sit back and you start looking at all the evidence. I mean, I was upstairs cooking yesterday with my wife, and I just out of nowhere, all of this information was really weighing on me, and I'm like, all right, I got to hear this for myself. And I asked her, I said, play "I Am the Walrus" for me. She played it, and I start listening close, and I start piecing together a lot of the things that I'm finding in my research, and it's like, okay, noteworthy, definitely plausible, right down to let me find the lyrics for it, because there's lyrics about the policeman in "I Am the Walrus." So verse 2, sitting on a cornflake waiting for the van to come. I don't know the cornflake reference, but waiting for the van to come sounds like they're waiting for the ambulance. It's followed up with Corporation T-shirt, Stupid Bloody Tuesday, Man, You Been a Naughty Boy, You Let Your Face Grow Long. And then you kick into the chorus, I am the Eggman, I am the Eggman, I am the Walrus, Goo Goo Gajoo. And then verse 3 is Mr. City Policeman sitting, pretty little policemen in a row, see how they fly like Lucy in the Sky, which is a direct reference to Satan. I don't care who you are. I mean, Rihanna had the diamonds, Lucy in the Sky with diamonds, the Beatles song. Lucy in the Sky here in these lyrics, that has been a long known reference to Satan. But
Or
Mr.
Lucifer.
City Policeman, yeah. Mr. City Policeman sitting, pretty little policemen in a row. See how they fly like Lucy in the Sky. See how they run. I'm crying. I'm crying. I'm crying. I'm crying. Then it kicks into verse 4. Yellow matter custard dripping from a dead dog's eye. Crab-a-locker fishwife. Pornographic priestess. Boy, you've been a naughty girl. You let your knickers down. I am the Eggman. I am the Eggman. I am the Walrus. Goo Goo Gajoob.
What I find interesting, this is an iconic Beatles song. This one goes down in music history. It makes absolutely no sense. None.
No.
Absolutely no sense. So, that being said, there has to be a very specific message hidden within this. That's why I say stuff like this, conspiracies, definitely plausible. Otherwise, why would you make a piece of music like this? I could like babble like a baby and make like cow noises and stuff and call it a song. It doesn't make sense.
You're big into astrology. Get a load of the bridge. The bridge is sitting in an English garden waiting for the sun. If the sun don't come, you get a tan from standing in the English rain. It was raining on the night of the accident. Could that be a reference to blood-stained flesh?
Very possibly.
Could that
turn red?
I mean,
Did the car start on fire?
I'm not sure. I've heard no reference to that at all in
probably not then.
any of the other literature on the conspiracy. Verse 5, expert, texpert, choking smokers, don't you think the Joker laughs at you? Ho, 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 he, ha, ha, ha. See how they smile like pigs in a sty. See how they snide. I'm crying. There's a reference to Krishna in verse 6.
That's kind of a little bit of a curveball.
Here's
reference to a Hindu god. Interesting.
Here's something interesting. So the outro is Oompa Oompa, stick it up your jumper. Everybody's got one. Everybody's got one. Now, I've never paid attention to this next part.
Okay, keep going. My head's going in weird places.
Okay. Villain, take my purse. If ever thou wilt thrive, bury my body and give the letters which thou find'st about me to Edmund Earl of Gloucester. Seek him out upon the English party. And that's where it comes in. O untimely death, I know thee well, a serviceable villain, as duteous to the vices of thy mistress as badness would desire. What, is he dead? Sit you down, father, rest you, is how the song ends. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, I don't know if our listeners know this, but Apple Records there was a big disarray about it because Paul was having an affair with one of the secretaries. Yeah, I think it was earlier. Those conspiracy guys had referenced it in their episode because, like I said, they talked about like Beatles from start to finish in their episode. They focused a good bit on the conspiracy, but they basically laid the entire groundwork for the entire history of the Beatles. Talked about the original basis. They talked about how George Harrison joined the band, how old everybody was. They talked about everything. So that was one thing that was brought up, was his love affair with this secretary for Apple Records, which they were signed to, and how it caused a big disarray, and how Brian Epstein, their manager, kind of funny there too, had to diffuse the entire situation. You know, I mean, the Beatles didn't get popular. They didn't become the Beatles until John and Paul were like 18. I think Ringo was a little bit younger than them. And when they first formed with George was only 14. George and Paul had known each other from school. George was 14, and John were both 16, and it didn't really say a whole lot about how old Ringo was in reference. You got to figure 18 to 27 years old when Paul, quote unquote, allegedly died. They were at peak fame that entire time. Right. And there was a lot of uprising around the band. There was, shortly before this death accusation happened, John Lennon had compared the Beatles to being bigger than Jesus. He wasn't comparing them to being greater than Jesus or anything like that. He says that in numerous interviews afterwards. He just said that they were more popular and in more homes than Jesus himself. And they caught a lot of shit for that. There was actually a lot of record burnings after that. A lot of people turned their backs on them, and that kind of started the decline of everything. So I don't know. Like I said, when you start looking at everything and you start breaking down, I'm sure if we sat here off podcast and like deep dove a lot of the meanings of I am the walrus, and we just sat here and picked through it for hours on end, we could probably come up with some pretty earth-shattering shit.
In all that, there was, you were talking about the references to, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, Lucy, this, that, the other thing, kind of a reference to Lucifer. Okay.
Yeah.
On like the back of Abbey Road there, you have Grim Reaper and all these song lyrics. You got the whole conspiracy or whatever. The whole story is laid out in the song. You just have to know how to decipher it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there is another theory out there that a lot of these celebrities, they sign a deal with the devil for this, and it's for their soul. He'll give you, put together the fame, the fortune, everything else. He just gets your soul when you're done, So it just, I don't know, a thought had occurred to me out of all these weird references, in this. What if this is actually a thing, selling your soul for fame and fortune? And there's been a number of celebrities that have, jokingly come out and said that they've done this. But what if an offer was proposed to the Beatles, the whole group? Paul didn't want to do it. Paul didn't want to do it.
Or what if Paul was the one who offered himself in turn for the whole band?
As a sacrifice? Maybe.
Yeah.
It's not out of the question.
Because, I mean, we have on our list of topics the 27 Club. And for our listeners who don't know what the 27 Club is, this is one I hope we do cover, especially with doing this episode and talking about what we're talking about right now. The 27 Club is a group of musicians and other famous people who have died at the age of 27. Paul McCartney was 27 when this alleged death happened.
So, one way or another, either a sacrifice or if he didn't want to do it and then the band continues on, maybe he did it to break the contract, to save the souls of the other members, which probably didn't work since they just replaced them. I don't know. There's some kind of spooky shit going on in this one, honestly.
Yeah. So, and in reference to what you're talking about, I'd like to turn this. We can do like an episode on the Crossroads or something. We can put it on the list, but I'd like to do one on something like this in itself, because Robert Johnson was a early 20th century blues musician who all of a sudden blew up out of nowhere. He got good out of nowhere. There's a story like this about Bob Dylan, where his college classmates say that he would always play guitar at gatherings and parties, but he was always okay. And then he went on a month-long trip or something, and he came back and he was absolutely astounding at guitar. And he's made references in things I'll save for that episode. But Robert Leroy Johnson was an early 20th century blues musician who died at 27. He was born May 8th, 1911, and died August 16th, 1938. And he is allegedly the first musician to go to the Crossroads and sell his soul.
Interesting.
And it's said that even listening to his music, which he wrote a lot of songs that talk about that kind of stuff. I'll save that until we do this episode too. But he wrote a lot of songs referencing running from black dogs and shit like this. But it said that even listening to his music can bring about a dark essence into your life. Not that it's going to be directly troubling for you or it's going to come after you, but it can invoke the darker things having a negative impact for a short amount of time.
There's a really good short documentary on Netflix about Robert Johnson also called Devil at the Crossroads, if you're looking to check something out.
Is there?
That's like, it's only like
I
48
wanna
minutes
check that
long,
out.
but it covers it pretty well.
I definitely want to check that out.
I think I actually,
and I definitely,
I think I watched that, and I remember being extremely creeped out by that one. So it's got to be pretty.
It's
good.
pretty creepy. You might have seen it. Yeah, it was. I enjoyed it. I had never heard the story until I watched that. I think it came out like 2 years ago. I think I watched it when it came out.
Right. You know, whether all these celebrity, let's call them anomalies, I say there's got to be something to it. There's so many coincidences and weird things. You know, how many weird things can happen to just a certain, more or less, group of people over and over and over and over and over again.
dude.
And then, you know, you have celebrities that
you
go
are
right
probably
on
the
TV
largest-
and,
Go ahead.
well, you know, that, you know, go on live interviews and they just happen to throw in that they, you know, sold their soul to the devil or they made a deal with the devil. You know, just YouTube that one. Celebrities make deal with devil, and you're going to come up with a lot of hits. Trying to think of some other bands that have talked about selling their soul. I mean, lots of actors. I think Kiss, Ozzy. I think you can find videos of all of them. You know,
Dude,
admitting
you
it.
You need to save it for the episode.
Oh,
The one thing I am going to give away, okay, in this episode, as a lead up to that episode, whenever we get to it, is the interview that I referenced with Bob Dylan. He is asked why he keeps touring after 50 years. Why does he keep doing this? Why doesn't he retire? Let's look at the Rolling Stones. Let's look at Aerosmith. Let's look at Van Halen. Let's look at Ozzy. Let's look at Kiss, who did their reunion tour in 1999.
mm-hmm.
22 fucking years ago.
Yep.
And it was supposed to be the end. Okay, you have all these musicians who keep going. Motley Crue is coming back with another arena tour. It was supposed to happen, but COVID shut it down. After they all signed contracts to never tour together again, never perform together again, Motley Crue was done. And a year later, they come back with this arena tour announcement. Bob Dylan says in that interview, I keep going because I have to fulfill what they want.
Well, that's kind of telling.
That's very, very vague. And it's not verbatim. I think there was mention of I keep going because I have to. It's what they want. Or there was mention of a contract or something like that in the interview. But he says that shit.
Yep.
He says that shit. Okay? 50 years in the game and he's still going because he has to. He has to. He has to fulfill that. And like I said, look at fucking AC/DC lost Brian Johnston. They get Axl Rose to fill in. If you watch The Pick of Destiny, Angus Young was one of the ones who had the Pick of Destiny.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have that contract to fulfill? Is that why they brought in Axl Rose as a frontman to keep going?
Very possibly.
I mean, Malcolm Young dying, I don't think that's going to keep them from going. I think we're still going to see something from AC/DC. Ozzy's on his fucking deathbed. You got to shove fucking 8 kilos of coke, fucking Quaaludes, half a pound of pot, and some fucking meth in that cocksucker just to get him on stage and mobile enough to perform. But he's still out there doing it. Why? Why?
More money than God, have nothing left to prove, awards, everything. Oh, it's for the love of the music.
Dude!
You can't get out of bed.
Dude! Dude, let's talk about how many times Nikki Sixx has fucking overdosed and not died. He's been dead, but they've brought him back every fucking time.
Yeah.
And you want to tell me there's not a contract to fulfill?
Right. This stuff sounds very hoodoo. It sounds very just out there retarded. But when you start looking at it, I mean, where else do you go with this? Like these guys literally drop dead, stand back up, and keep playing. You know, and it's interesting because like at a lot of these guys at their age, maybe that's the thing. Maybe when they stop playing music, they die, and they have to pay that contract. They have to give up their soul. So they just keep going.
Malcolm Young.
Yeah.
AC/DC and Malcolm Young. AC/DC brought in Axl Rose just to finish off the tour because Brian Johnston couldn't finish the tour. At least he wasn't the original singer, was he? I'm going to feel like an ass.
No.
Okay. Yeah. I don't remember the name of the original singer, but didn't he die? Who was...
I want to say...
Because this might feed into this, too.
He died abruptly early in the band's creation. It was... They were only around for a couple years, I think. And... I don't know. It was in the early days in Australia. He was around for a couple years. They started to make it big, and then he puked there, and they had to find somebody. I just watched a documentary on AC/DC. It was about a month ago, something like that. But
Bon Scott, that was his name.
Oh, okay.
And he did. And I don't remember. I know that he was homosexual. He was gay. I don't. I'm gonna look this up before I even say anything because I don't want to be misquoted and have an attack here. Okay, so he allegedly died of alcohol poisoning.
Oh, okay, maybe that accidental drank
but
too much.
they're now saying it was a heroin overdose.
Oops. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean,
Well, it isn't surprising. I mean,
I was going to go on a tangent when we were talking about Nikki Sixx and how many times he's died. Let's take a look at how fucking fearlessly Ozzy Osbourne has lived his life. Ozzy Osbourne pissed on an anthill, got down and snorted a line of his own piss and ants, and Nikki Sixx got down there right next to him and did the same thing. How do you live that fucking recklessly without a fear of death? I mean, honestly, you cannot tell me that there's not something here. I gotta save it for the episode, otherwise I'm gonna keep going. I can't. I honestly can't.
You know, whether it be a contract with the devil or money or genetic bloodlines or immortals, this whole story is wild.
Dude, I am going to find it and I'm going to send you guys the first installment in the TikTok series. I spent like an hour deep diving this shit because this dude on TikTok had like a 36-part series about the weekend and how he tells his tale through the videos for his songs about how he sold his soul to the devil for fame. It starts out with I Can't Feel My Face, where he's playing in a bar, getting booed off stage, drinks thrown at him. There's this woman who is of the light sitting there just completely enthralled with him, and then there's this creepy ass old dude sitting there playing with a lighter, showing the dark side and flames. That dude pops up in another video, and it's just like this whole tale where he starts out where he sells his soul for fame, and then He breaks out of that with the help of the light, and then he goes back and he can't escape this contract, and it's fucked up. It's really fucked up. But I mean, I rabbit holed that shit. I was sitting here, nothing better to do. My daughter fell asleep in my arms, and she's on this kick where when she's asleep, if you try to put her down, she wakes up and screams. So I was just laying there, her asleep in one arm, phone in the other, scrolling through this dude's fucking TikTok, just going, "What the fuck?"
Here's the biggest question. Would you ever sell your soul to the devil?
Nope. I'm good.
Yeah, fuck it, I'm in.
Dude, in less than a week, you are getting on a plane and going to Florida, and you're going to sit here and openly admit that shit? You're going to bring that bad shit on you? Oh.
I don't know. I think I'm out on that deal. But what makes me nervous is if, like, one person in the group signs and the other two don't want to, or the other 5 don't want to, they all die and get replaced. That makes me nervous. Just saying. My life insurance policy ain't
Bro,
great. It's not great.
Stop.
What?
Stop. Look at the tragedy. Bon Scott gone. Randy Rhoads left fucking Quiet Riot to go play for Ozzy and is killed in a plane crash near like 2 years after joining Ozzy's band.
Just saying.
Hands down, one of the greatest guitarists.
All I'm saying, join me or else, boys. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
No. Nope.
Oh,
No.
well, I mean,
not even an option. This is the last episode of the podcast, if that's it. Sorry, folks.
Thank God. I've been trying to quit for a month.
Well, at least we didn't get to the piss and ants yet, so
it's a little funny.
Probably a good time to pull the plug.
That's the only part Jake's worried about. He's like, I'm in as long as nothing's going up my nose.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, no thanks. Yeah, no. I mean, you ever notice how many of these episodes all tie together? There's some thread that you could lead back through every episode we've done so far.
I said it in an episode or two ago.
Yep, you did.
Where you can take every single conspiracy that is known to man and link them together in one shape, form, or another, whether it be by aliens, New World Order, deep state cover-ups, whatever it may be. You can link just about every conspiracy together.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's been like at least probably 3 or 4 episodes that we've done that have referenced MK Ultra. Just that one, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's it. I guess we'll tie up the episode there. To let our listeners know, we are going to be taking a 2-week hiatus here. You heard us just a short time ago reference Jamie's trip to Florida. He's going to be gone for 2 of our recording days, which are Sundays. We weren't prepared enough to get some pre-recorded episodes up for you guys. Jake and I have tossed around maybe just doing some other stuff, but Jamie and I tried that back when Bill was on the podcast, and it didn't feel right. I think what we're going to do is we're just going to hold off, and 2 weeks from this episode, we'll have another one ready for you. And we're going to be coming back with the 9/11 conspiracy. So, sorry to keep you on hold a little bit. I know we just had a week hiatus there too, but we got to enjoy our lives too. And I mean, we don't make a dime off of this. We're doing this just for the sheer enjoyment of it. So we're going to make time for ourselves as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of pumped coming back with that 9/11 episode. I mean, Jamie is sending us down the mother of all rabbit holes here. 9/11.
No, the listeners, start doing your damn jobs. Like our shit, share it, get us some exposure, get us paid, and we'll be here every damn week. Till then, kiss my ass. I'm out.
I mean, it probably would help if we set up like a Patreon or something like that, where if the listeners did want to contribute, they could. But we
That's
haven't
not the
even made a
point.
step in that. No, it's
No.
all on them.
Everything.
No, but on the other
They
hand,
should be sending us checks.
if they want us here like 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, I'm good with it. I'm good with it. You know, we
Yep.
can definitely.
You just have to bankroll my guitar. You'd have to bankroll my guitar and truck addiction. That's all.
As referenced previously, I am not above signing contracts, so
Careful, I hear the devil's on vacation in Florida this time of year, so just saying, be on guard. Keep an eye out. Keep
it's
an
gonna
eye
be a
out.
party.
Mhm.
Keep an eye out for Florida Man too while you're down there.
I
Have something to
hope
add to
I
that
see
episode.
shit, honestly, I hope it's just wild. It better be everything I imagine it to be.
What are you going? It's spring break or something? Come on, there's so many cool things in Florida.
I mean, I was in Florida for about 3 months. I was in West Palm, Boca, and Miami, and
I'm not
it
going
was
anywhere near
nothing.
there.
I hate to burst your bubble, but it was, at least for me, everything I had seen in movies up until that point, it was nothing like that.
No, I'm not talking about. I'm talking
Not
about the
saying
things
it's a
I
bad
see in
thing.
the news, dude. I want to see fucking
Oh.
meth people. I want to see fucking whatever the hell bath salt people eating people's faces. I want to see
that was in
like
Florida,
naked dudes
wasn't
breaking
it?
into houses, and like I want to see all that shit. Yes,
Dude, where are you going?
that's
in
the stuff
Florida?
I want to see. All the stuff like, dude, I don't care. I'll drive around the whole damn place. I want to see it all. I want to experience all that. I want to see like a SWAT team kicking the neighbor's house. Everything.
Okay, when you get back, you're just gonna have to message me where you went because I'm not going there. Wherever you went,
Okay.
SWAT teams and all that, homeless people eating each other's faces.
Hurricane hits, everything.
Yeah.
I'm trying to live like an entire life in a week so I can come back and never go again.
Trust me, when you go down there, if you're driving around Florida in their traffic, you're never going to want to go there again, ever. Been there.
I will be driving.
That was the worst part.
Almost the entire length of the state.
I'm sorry.
That
I'm on the opposite side of all the big cities, though.
Oh, my!
I'll be on the Gulf side.
Yeah,
it's not too bad over there.
Yeah, until you get down to like Tampa or
over
whatever.
where I was.
I'm
Rush
wrestling.
hour traffic in West Palm Beach was a fucking nightmare. It would take you an hour and a half to go a mile and a half. And at every single intersection, there's 15 fucking homeless people out there with signs, fucking skinnier than shit, batshit crazy, shaking like a fucking 2-pound chihuahua out in a rainstorm, begging for money. And then you see half of them go underneath the overpass and get into a fucking BMW and drive home.
Yep, that's what I need. Hell yeah. I'm telling you, doesn't Catfish Cooley live in Florida?
I think so.
With a name like that,
you better go party with that
live in
motherfucker.
Florida.
Yes. I want to. No, I don't want to live there. I just want to experience it. So then I have stories to tell. But then I'm coming back here to Wisconsin, away from all that shit. I'm living in my little farmhouse in the middle of the field, by nobody. But I just want to be able to tell stories.
Something tells me Catfish is your guy to party with while you're down there. Then, I mean, no disrespect to Catfish Cooley, but something tells me he knows. I'm not saying he does this, but something tells me he knows where all the meth dens are, where you can get your full experience.
Dude, he's white and lives in a trailer. Of course he does.
Yeah, he's seen a few things. That boy, I mean, just wearing overalls with no t-shirt tells me that he's seen some shit in his day.
Yep.
So I might have to adopt that look.
You're on your way at this point.
I know I am. I mean, fuck, started the episode before I even started recording. You told me I looked like a homeless. So.
Yes. A homeless. Yes,
I'm not
you
eating.
look like a homeless.
I am not eating anybody's face for you all fucked up on bath salts, so I'm just gonna throw that out there now.
I just want it like
I don't feel
so.
like
I want it to be like at a zoo, right? Like I don't want to get too close, but I just want to see it happen. Snap some pictures, you know, throw some candy at him or something. Like buy a little
Fucking
handful of
Pop
shit out of the
Rocks.
vending machine and like maybe they can eat out of my they can eat crystal meth out of my hand.
They swarm like zombies. Buyer beware on that one. Straight up. You start throwing candy, meth or candy, whatever you want to say. Buyer beware. Yeah, they swarm.
Yeah, candy.
Candy.
all right.
I don't know, man.
Well, folks, with that being said, we'll see you when we come
Thanks
back.
for joining us for another episode of Shenanigans.
Yes. Glad to be here for you week to week when we decide to show up.
Wish me luck.
I can't say it's consistent week to week, but I don't know who needs to hear this, but brush your teeth and scrub your ass.
I feel attacked.